What's going on, internet? Magee Aerial Media coming at you with a new tutorial video. Today we're going to look at doing a 3D animation, adding 3D characters into some real life footage, and we're going to be using this stock footage. I've created a 3D folder to hold all of our assets, and we're going to need internet browser. We're going to be using DaVinci Resolve and Blender. So I'm just going to walk through and try to go through as fast and as simple as possible to add a 3D character into some footage. So first thing we need to do is jump into our internet browser and go to the Mixamo. We'll go ahead and get that pulled up here. Mixamo.com. This is by Adobe, so if you have like a Lightroom subscription, you're able to get logged in. I'm already logged in here, and you're gonna go to pick a character. So if you click on characters, it's gonna have a bunch of different characters here available for you. You can choose whatever character you want to use to import into your footage for the 3D animation. Since it's a little bit closer to Halloween time, I'm actually gonna use the creepy clown looking guy, since it is, kind of Halloween season, but you can use any one of these characters to bring into your footage. So we're going to go ahead and select our character, and then the next thing we want to do is come over to animations, and we're just going to do a silly dance animation. They have a bunch of different animations you can see here that you'll be able to click on, and then your 3D character, once it loads up, let me make this bigger for you. Once it loads up, you'll be able to see your 3D character do the animation. There's a bunch of different ones here, so I'm going to go to dance, and I'm going to actually do the twist, just to make it a fun little, Halloween evil clown looking guy doing the twist dance. So then down here you're gonna have your frames. You have 0 to 283. So that's how long the animation is for. So you want to keep that in track on the footage that you're putting them in to make sure that there's enough frames to cover the entire clip that you're using. So we're gonna come up to download, and we want to do the .dae file, and then just hit download. And then this is going to take a moment, and then download this. This will go into my downloads folder, and I'll move it over into that 3D folder for my assets. So let me get that pulled up. And it'll be a zip, so we just got to extract it. And then we have the twist dance, and then my 3D video. I'm just going to paste it there, so it has our information there. So then next we need to go into Blender. And go ahead and get this opened up. We want to delete the cube, and all we need to do here is import the .dae file, and then we just have to find that on our desktop, 3D video, twist dance, and then we got the file right here to import. And then we're going to go ahead and import that 3D animation that we got off of the Mixamo website. And then here we got an outline of our character. We can view him on the timeline. We see him that he's doing that animation there. So the whole reason we're going to do that is so we can export as a Alembic ABC file. And we're going to do that in our 3D video. And then we're going to export the Alembic. And then that's all we need Blender for. We have to export as a Alembic file, in order to use it in our DaVinci Resolve, and I'll show you that here in the next step. I'll go ahead and open up DaVinci Resolve. Create a new project. And let me grab my video. We got this stock footage here. Oh, why does it say good? Okay. So now we got our video. I want to bring it into the timeline. And here I just kind of want to scrub the footage to kind of see where I want. I guess basically our Halloween clown guy will be dancing in the street. I can kind of put him right here on this line. So I probably want it to maybe start like right here. So I'm just going to cut it down, just have it start right there. And then probably just slowly push in until we get to like right here at this line area, and then or right before the pole, and then stop. And I'll cut it there. And then now I'll have the footage that I want to use. And the issue with this is if you just jump over into Fusion, it starts on frame like 155, 160, and then goes all the way over to almost 400. And our limbic scene is from frame 1 to 283, like I showed you on the Mixamo. So how we fix that is right click and then go to new Fusion clip. And then when we go into the Fusion tab, it's going to start at 0 and then go to like 230. So this animation was around 280, I think, frames. So he'll be animated the whole entire clip. So if you're new to Fusion, it's this node tree here. We have media 1, that's our video, and then our media out. So here we have our media out, and then over here is our media in. So we got nothing in between. What we need to do is bring in a camera tracker to track the motion for when we bring in our 3D asset. That way the 3D asset is not going to be floating around in space. So we have to essentially track the camera movement to create a 3D camera, so that way it'll follow our real camera, and when we put in our 3D animation, it'll track and the 3D character won't be floating. So on here, what you're going to do is hit Shift and Space, and it's going to pull up this little toolbox menu, and we want to type in camera tracker. So we got the camera tracker right here is CTRA. Go ahead and click and hit add. So that's going to bring in our camera tracker here. What we need to do is get it connected. So we're going to take this yellow triangle to connect it, and then bring it into our media 1. And then next thing we want to do is bring our footage to the start, and then we're going to go up here and click on auto track. And now we're going to have the computer add in all these tracking points for the information, auto track, to try to figure out exactly what camera movement happened, and that way it can bring in our 3D camera into the scene. So after you have it tracked, you want to come over to the Solve tab and then click on Solve. And we want to see how good our 3D camera actually tracked. So we got the solve score of 0.9. .91 we can see right here, which is an excellent solve score. As long as it's underneath 1, you're good. If you get it underneath 0.5, that's going to be excellent, but this is all we're going to need for this scene. If you have a difficult scene where your solve score is a lot higher, what you can do is you can come back in, scrub through this footage, and if you see any of these points that are red, you just highlight them and hit delete, since those are not good points because it was actually tracking like snow falling, so that's going to mess up our track. Any of these red ones you can come in and delete, and then after that you'll be able just to hit solve again, and then it'll solve, and then hopefully it'll get you underneath 1. So just deleting those 3 or 4 points, they got it down to 0.8, so we even got a better solve from doing that. But again, if you get underneath 1, you're good. If you get underneath 0.5, that's like super excellent. This is all we're gonna need for the purpose of the tutorial, but if you have a bad solve score, just kind of scrub through your footage, and any of these points that are red or yellow, you can just delete those and then hit solve again to bring down your solve score. So now that we have it solved, we have to export that information. So we're going to go to export and then just click on this export button right here. And then that's going to bring our camera tracking information in. And now we'll set this off to the side. We won't need that to be connected to our media out. We'll just get it from this camera tracker node and connect it straight to our media out. Keep this, we're going to need this later, so just leave this set aside here. But essentially this is all of our tracking information for our 3D camera going into our media out. Alright, so next we're going to need to import our 3D model into the scene. Once we have the camera tracked, what we need to do is go up to Fusion, and then we're going to go to Import. And then this is why we needed Blender to get that Alembic scene. And then we have our ABC file that we have to go ahead and hit open. And you can double check the frame rate if you're using a 24 or 30 or 60 frames. You're able to adjust it here, but it was 30 set from the stock footage that I received, which is this snowfall pushing. And then we did 30 from Mixamo, and then we're going to import it as 30 from the Blender as well too. So we're going to hit OK, and then this is going to pull in our 3D character. We can see if we bring this over into the left viewer here, and you're going to be able to navigate in 3D space. If you haven't used DaVinci's Fusion, if you have the middle scroll wheel and you just scroll up, is gonna basically bring your camera up. If you scroll down, it'll bring your camera down. If you click in the middle and then drag, is just gonna be sliding left, right, up, or down, so you can just kind of slide either way. And then to zoom, you're going to hold down Control and scroll down to zoom out, and then scroll up to zoom in. And then to grab and drag, you're going to hold the Alt key and then hold the middle mouse button, click it down, and then you'll be able to pan and kind of view. So with holding Alt in the middle one, you'll be able to kind of pan, tilt and pan and view the camera each different way. And then when you let go of Alt and you click and hold in on the mouse button, you're able to kind of drag it. So you can kind of drag the camera in the 3D space. So that's just a quick tutorial on how to move the camera in the 3D space. Now you can notice our clown here is just a 3D model. He doesn't have his mesh or his skin on. So what you'll need to do is go back over into the 3D video where we originally downloaded, and there's going to be a textures folder, and then from the textures folder you're going to see this white clown diffuse skin. So you're going to bring that in on the node tree, and then if we look at that, it's going to be, this has to do with like UV mapping and everything on him, but if we connect that to our white clown mesh and then bring him up, we're going to see that he has, basically he looks like he has his skin. So this is basically his skin, and this is our 3D character, and we're going to go ahead and attach him to the ground plane. And now you can see here he is taking up part of the scene. So if we want to transform him, we're going to click on the ABC, and then we can scale him down and up. So that's how you're able to bring him into the scene. And the next thing we're going to need to do is rotate him to a 90. And then that should, let's see, bring him down. Let's see, on 3D merge. So now on our guy, we need to click on blue. He's kind of in front of the camera here, so we got to push him into our scene. So we want to put him like right around there. So again, if you don't see your 3D model, you're going to want to come into the merge 3D. You'll just bring this into the left viewer. Hold control and scroll down to zoom out, and then zoom in to try to find where the 3D model is on this plane, and then you'll use these to kind of drag them where you need to drag them. The next thing we need to do on the ground plane, you can see that it has this purple, this is where it's thinking that the ground is. So if we click on ground plane, uncheck the visibility, that'll remove the ground plane for us. But next we need to tell basically where the ground is. So we're going to come into the camera tracker. On the export, we're going to go change this from aligned to unaligned. And then the next thing we want to do is to select a few points on the ground here, so we can tell the system, hey, this is, you know, some points close, some points far away, across. Once those are selected, we can tell the system where the ground is. We're going to choose set from selection. You'll see these numbers change, and then set from selection, and you'll see these numbers change. And then that kind of sets it, but we need to go ahead and update from previous export, and that's going to update it with all this information. And now you can see that brings our character down on the ground. So now we have our ground plane set, and we have our 3D character in. I'm going to go ahead and bring him a little bit forward. Easy way to do that, since we have him here with this blue, we can drag. Ooh. Let me zoom out, click on him, pull him forward. I want him just in front of this light here. And now you can see where our camera is and our character in front of the camera right there with all the point clouds. So next we need to scale him down a little bit, just to get him a little bit more lifelike, closer to real size. And then that's how you're able to import your 3D character in. And there's one extra thing that we can do to kind of bring him into the scene a little bit more, and that is with a color correction node. We're going to come over here to the color corrector, and we're going to bring that down. And what we're going to do is remove our mesh, and we're going to bring our mesh into the color corrector node. And then we're also going to bring our scene into the color corrector node. And then we're going to bring the color corrector node into our clown mesh. So now you'll be able to see him back on with his skin. And next we want to come over to the color corrector node, and we want to change this over to histogram. And then on histogram we're going to set that to match. And now you can see what that does is bring our character into the scene with a little bit more color accuracy. Since this is a warm scene, if we turn the color corrector node off, you can see he cools down a bit. It doesn't really look like he's in the scene. And then when we turn the color corrector node on, it brings him into the scene. It looks like a little bit strong for my liking. So if we zoom in here, we can take a look at him. We have this basically like this strength slider. If we slide it back down, he cools off a bit. Slide it back up, he warms up a bit. I like putting this like right around the, maybe a little bit above the halfway mark. So you can see before and then after, and it just kind of brings our character into the scene a little bit more. So we have the actual UV mesh or the skin coming into the color corrector node, and then also our media 1 is our scene, which is analyzing in the color corrector node. And then we have the histogram to match, and then our strength. And then with the color corrector node out, going into the mesh, it changes the colors, and now it sets the scene for our 3D animated character. So then that way he looks like he's a little bit better in the scene than if we didn't have it at all. He's just kind of standing out and doesn't really look like he's, you know, colors matching or part of the scene at all. So that's a quick way we can actually get him to look like he's in the scene with the color corrector node. So here we have our media in, and next we'll go ahead and look in how we're able to add a shadow on the ground to bring him into the scene a little bit more. Alright, so here's a quick recap of our scene. We have media 1 is our footage that we got, stock footage from the internet. Here, camera tracker, track the information for our 3D scene, which we can see our 3D animated character here with our camera that has been tracked with the movement from point A to point B. So that way we can see our character stuck on the ground. Once we tracked, we exported, got all this information here. This is basically our camera tracker information coming from a 3D scene into a 2D scene to our media out. This information is going to be our 3D model. With the color corrector node, we have our mesh. If we remove the mesh from the color corrector node, that'll remove the skin with the color corrector node. We brought it in to match with the color corrector turned off. You can see the color temperature takes him out of the scene a little bit, and then we turn the color correction node on. It brings him back into the scene. So that was just a quick little way to get our character into the scene. So basically this is our skin for our 3D character coming into our media 1, which was our stock footage, going through the color corrector to on the color corrector node, histogram that we matched, and then this was the little RGB strength that you can increase or decrease how strong that match is. Color corrector coming into the 3D animation on our ground plane, into our 3D space, down to our 2D space, down to our media out. So went through, and you can see basically if we played this through, we now have our 3D character dancing on the street. So this next part here is going to be me working through adding a shadow on the street in order to bring him a little bit more into the scene. So what we're going to need to do here is bring a shape node. If we click on this, that's not the one that we need. The shape right here, 3D shape node. So this is going to bring a shape into our 3D space that we'll be able to place underneath our character, bring in a 3D light to shine a shadow on. I'll show you how to do that real quick right here, where we're going to just move our 3D character out of the way, bring in this 3D shape onto our character, onto the ground plane here. So this, you can see, is part of the ground. What we're going to need to do is scale it up. Make it bigger so that way we can cast a shadow on it. Also want to move it. Oh no, that's going to move everything. So what we need to do is detach our 3D character. And then what we want to do is move this ground plane, let's see, basically a little bit forward. This is left and right. Move that back. And then this is forward and backwards. So we're going to bring it forward so it covers up the front portion of our street. Get it to like right there. And then we'll go ahead and connect our 3D character. It does move him as well, so with our 3D character we're going to have to move him back. Yeah, there we go. So we move our 3D character back, and in that way when the shot ends we're going to be basically right on him. Just a little bit, kind of just in front of that light pole there. So now we got our 3D shape. That was this 3D shape tool here. Bring it in and then attach it to the ground plane. So that way we can get it to kind of just where we need it to be. And then the next thing we're going to do is we will need a merge, but we also need a spotlight. The spotlight is going to cast a shadow, and then I'll show you how to key this out in a second, but I just have to remember here, give me 1 second to remember here how to get the lights back in. Alright, so what we'll need is a merge 3D node, and we're going to take this into the merge 3D node and take that into the ground plane and have our spotlight here. And then we're going to need to move this spotlight on our character to be basically where this light is, so then there's going to be a shadow facing forward on him. But in order to do that, you're going to need to right click, go to 3D options, and then we need to check the lighting, and then also check the shadows. So that way it'll have the lighting and the shadows for both. And then we have for our spotlight controls for the actual light. So you can see the cone changing there. And then like shadow density here as well too. So we got to get this light over our character to cast the shadow. So let me get this pulled up. So that way we're on the spotlight. Let me zoom out just a bit. So this part can kind of be tricky, but you just kind of have to play around with it. I'm using the control and the middle mouse button here, kind of just move this around in 3D space. Try to get it on our character here. I'm gonna go to intensity. Media, camera tracker. So on the merge 3D, we need to enable lighting and shadows. Alright, so once you right click on the shape 3D node, enable lighting and shadows, make sure you do it on all the nodes, the merge, 2D, the camera, and then the camera tracker renderer. When you click on that and it comes up over into the inspector, go ahead and enable lighting and shadows, so then that way we can see what that's going to do to our final image here. Again, I'll show you how to key this out, but this shape node that we brought in is going to be the place where we cast the shadow on in our 3D scene. So we come back over to the spotlight, and we can see when we bring that up, there's a little shadow that's casting, and it looks like it could be coming from this street lamp. We want it to come a little bit more at an angle, so what I'm going to do is bring it so I can see it a little better. I want to move it back just a bit and maybe angle it right like that, and I kind of want to move it to the right so it looks like right about there looks decent. And then what you can do in the spotlight on the controls is you can play with under the shadows the density if you want it like super dark or super light. So with this one, I'm going to bring it down a little bit so it's just casting like a little bit of a shadow right there. So now we're good with our shadow. Now the other problem we need to correct is our lighting in this 3D environment is only coming from this light to actually cast a shadow. So we need to bring in another light, which we may have to come back here and change our density with, but we need to light our character. So what we're going to do, shift space, and our select tool comes up over here. Type in light, and I need ambient light. Add. We don't need another 3D merge, we just need the one that we can merge everything into. So now you can see our character is a little bit more well lit in our scene. If we attach that, he's a little bit darker. And we attach that back. This is our basically our light source for our character here. And we can move that around, but it's a non-directional light, so it doesn't really matter. All we need to do is come in our ambient light and mess around with the intensity a little bit, and when we do that it's going to mess with our shadow a little bit, but right now we're just focused on lighting our character in the scene. Let's say right around there looks good. Now we need to come back to our spotlight, and we may need to change our intensity on the shadow here again. So let me zoom this out to fit. And now we have our shadow. So you can see our shadow is now going to be on the street with us dancing. and we got our character lit. So that's how you're able to add in the shadow. Now what we're going to need to do is actually key the white 3D image out. So what we're going to do for that is remove this from our media out, take our tracker 1, bring it into our camera renderer. It's going to create a merge, and now with that merge we're going to go ahead and connect it to our media out. And what we're going to need to do is bring in a ultra keyer. So we're going to do shift space, and again it's going to pull up our tool. We want to type in ultra keyer and then add. Now put it in front of the merge. We actually need this. Oop. Remove this, get our merge, go in here. And now we need to bring this on here, and we want to hold shift so it changes colors, and then let go. Now we have our ultra keyer selected. We want to hit right. So what we want to do is come over to our merge, right click and hit swap inputs. So merge, right click, swap inputs. We have our ultra keyer here. What we need to do is change our shape into a certain color, so that way we can key that color out of our scene. So I'm going to come into shape, go into our materials. I'm just going to use the good old-fashioned green screen. So now it changes to green. Select that, and then on our ultra keyer I'm going to go ahead and pick from screen color, hit OK, and now you can see we got that keyed out, and our final output shows our shadow on the street to actually bring in our character. But there's one other thing where you can see there's just like a little dark line coming all the way across the image here from this 3D shape. So what I like to do is to see if I can't just, let me edit, undo that. Take our character off, just have our shape on, and I just want to pull our shape forward just enough until that's gone, and bring our 3D character back on. Now he's actually moved forward as well, so I want to bring him back. And I'm just gonna edit, undo that, and then bring him back to right where that light pole was, and that's pretty much it. So now we have him on the street with the shadow. Looks like it's coming from that light dancing. So then all you have to do next is essentially just export it. So that's how you're able to bring a 3D animated character into your footage, and then add a shadow on the ground to make it look a little bit more realistic. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial, and if you have any other questions, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, and we'll catch you in the next one.